The Atkins diet, I mean, there's some people that have had a lot of success with the Atkins diet. It just didn't work for me. They said, after a week, you won't have any carb cravings. No. I was hallucinating after a week. Every time the doorbell rang, I thought it was Pizza Hut. Come to save my ass. Is that them? I had carb cravings. When you drive by a bakery and you jump out of a moving vehicle, that's called a craving. And I had horrible nightmares. I dreamt Dr. Phil was outside my house. John, come out here and exercise. You can't be big if your lifestyle won't allow it. Get off my lawn. John, come out here and talk to me because it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. I'm calling the cops. I've never been like adventurous either. Although people have always asked me to go on adventures, rides, pursuits, amusements, journeys to see what will happen to me. That's their fun. My whole life, people have said to me, John, you have to come along. It's going to be a lot of fun. I have trouble saying no. I say nay, it's easier for me. Every year I get a call, John, we're going skiing. People want to see me ski. John's funny. He's funny to hang around with. Let's put skis on him. And he'll be funnier. I went skiing a few years ago. I wasn't going to ski. I just want to see the mountains, the change of seasons. I wasn't going to ski. They gave me tequila. I don't drink tequila anymore because it makes me ski.
Good morning. It's Saturday, Mike Hammer Saturday, July the 1st, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have No Free Lunch, The Rape of the Mind, Donald Trump, Tucker-Carlson, Senator Tim Scott, Vivek-Ramaswamy, and Chapter 7 of Mike Hammer in I, the Jury. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Let
Thank you. And now, there's no free lunch, 250 Economic Truths by David-Bahnsen.
The enrichment wasn't achieved by government coercion, which is usually counterproductive, nor was it achieved by science unassisted, or the exploitation of slaves, or the routine accumulation of capital, or a profound dialectic of history. It was achieved by liberty alone, a necessary and pretty much sufficient cause. Give people liberty, and by uncoerced cooperation through commerce, they become adults, enriched in body and soul. Deirdre McCloskey. What McCloskey has said here provides us valuable reinforcement. Liberty facilitated greater human action, and out of greater human action came enrichment. A freer mankind, acting with capacity, agency, and incentive, raised the standard of living exponentially upon absorption of this greater freedom. But McCloskey says that liberty was pretty much sufficient, an inadequate but telling qualifier. Yes, liberty enabled free exchange, and in such cooperative effort, adulthood is needed. But it is that coupling of freedom to virtue, to responsibility, to cooperation, to integrity, to morality, to trust, that became the potent formula. Liberty incentivizes it. Liberty is a necessary condition for it. But liberty alone is not sufficient. Liberty coupled with virtue becomes the ideal recipe for prosperity.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David-Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. So who is the true conservative? He is the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He is the person that understands that culture trumps politics. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He does not go looking for trouble. He is alert. He curbs his curiosity, and he acts like an adult. He is patriotic and uses common sense. He is judgmental and moralizes. He refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why, rather than why not. He is consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He is a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that being a true conservative is best, or you are wasting your time. Back in a minute. Thank you. What are the true conservative suggested federal political priorities? Number 1, recognize that the government has no rights. 2, defund Planned Parenthood. 3, replace the Affordable Care Act. 4, institute zero-based budgeting. 5, prohibit collective bargaining for all public employees. 6, assign criminal and civil liabilities to all government regulators. 7, immediately repeal the Patriot Act. 8, immediately repeal all emergency dictator laws. 9, reinstate writs of outlawry. 10, use taxpayer funds to sponsor recalls, ballot initiatives, and referendums. 11, create a flexible minimum wage. 12, means test health care. 13, immediately and permanently prohibit investment banking by any office holder. And 14, make nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons obsolete. Back in a minute. Thank you. What are the true conservative cultural priorities? Bring back hierarchy. Bring back the admiration of intelligence, morality, and beauty. Bring back single-income households, integration, parenting, the primacy of existence, certainty of knowledge, and universal rights and wrongs. Bring back principled behavior, masculinity and femininity. Bring back Adam 12, John F. Kennedy, the gold standard, pre-HMO medical care, and nonprofit news. Bring back civil service, the term stupid question, arguments and fights, the cultural influence of the church, and the Boy Scouts bring back the influence of social organizations such as the Lions Club and the Rotary Club. Bring back bowling. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Kayleigh McInerney with her guest and Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott.
Well, here's what we know. The Supreme Court said exactly what every American that I know understands. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. There's no reason for us to ask nurses, aides, and welders to pay for the student loans of doctors and lawyers making six figures. This is what you call common sense being seen by the Supreme Court and ruling consistent with common sense. It also saves the American people somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion. It is a significant impact, and it also reins in President Biden's ridiculous efforts to actually appease his base by doing something we say giveaways, just plain old giveaways.
And that was Senator Tim Scott on Kayleigh McInerney's show on Fox. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Sean Hannity with Vivek-Ramaswamy.
We're failing these kids spectacularly, and this unholy alliance with the Democrats and teachers' unions drives me nuts. Why have we allowed that to continue?
Well, you said it beautifully, Sean, and I think one of the things we have to do is define merit. What does merit mean? You actually said it really well. Yeah. It means a system where everyone, no matter who they are, can achieve their own God-given potential. Some on sports fields where we don't apply race-based preferences, some in the classroom, some in music, whatever their God-given potential is, to achieve that without any human being standing in their way. That's what a meritocracy is. That's what America was founded on. The teachers' unions, a big problem actually, Sean, starts with the Department of Education at the federal level. Biden, what did he say today? As soon as that decision came down, he said he was going to direct the Department of Education to find alternatives. That's why I've said that as U.S. president, I would shut these bureaucracies, including the Department of Education. I will shut it down because that's actually a source of these race-based preferences that find their way into our school. So
that was Vivek Ramaswamy with Sean Hannity, and he made a promise. Make note that he did make a promise that if elected president, he's shutting down the Department of Education. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the rape of the mind.
The paradox of freedom. Freedom and planning present no essential contrasts. In order to let freedom grow, we have to plan our controls over the forces that limit freedom. Beyond this, we must have the passion and the inner freedom to prosecute those who abuse freedom. We must have the vitality to attack those who commit mental suicide and psychic murder through abuse of liberties, dragging down other persons in their wake. Suicidal submissions is a kind of subversion from within. It is a passive surrender to a mechanized world without personalities. It is the denial of personality. We must have the fervor to stand firmly for freedom of the individual, for mutual tolerance and dignity. And we must learn not to tolerate the destruction of these values. We must not tolerate those who make use of worthy ideas and values only to destroy them as soon as they are in power. We must be intolerant of these abuses as long as the battle for mental life or death goes on. It cannot be emphasized too strongly that liberty is only possible with a strong set of beliefs and moral standards. This means that man has to adhere to self-restrictive rules, moral rules, in order to keep his freedom. When there is lack of such internal checks, owing to lack of education or to stereotyped education, then external pressure or even tyranny becomes necessary to check unsocial drives. Then freedom becomes the victim of man's inability to live in freedom and self-control. Mankind should be guaranteed the right not to hear and not to conform, and the right to defense against psychological attack and against intervention in the form of perverted mass propaganda, totalitarian pressure, and mental torture. No compromise or appeasement is possible in dealing with such attitudes. We have to watch carefully lest our own mistakes in attacking personal freedom become grist for the totalitarian's mill. Even our denunciation may have a paradoxical effect. Fear and hysteria further totalitarianism. What we need is careful analysis and understanding of such phenomena. Democracy is the regime of the dignity of man and his right to think for himself. The right to have his own opinion, more than that, the right to assert his own opinion, and to protect himself against mental invasion and coercion. When the United Nations has devised rules curtailing menticide and psychological intrusion, it will have ensured a human right as precious as physical existence. The right of the non-conforming free individual, the right to dissent, the right to be oneself. Tolerance of criticism and heresy is one of the conditions of freedom. Here we touch on another crucial point related to the technique of governing people. There is a relationship between over-centralization of government, mass participation, and totalitarianism. Mass participation in government without the decentralization that emphasizes the value of variation and individuality, and without the possibility of sound selection of leaders, facilitates the creation of the dictatorial leader. The masses then transfer their desire for power to him. The slave participates in a magic way in the glory of the master. Democratic self-government is determined by restraint and self-limitations, by sportsmanship and fairness, by voluntary observances of the rules of society, and by cooperation. These qualities come through training. In a democratic government, those who have been elected to responsible positions request controls and limitations against themselves, knowing that no one is without fault. Democracy is not a fight for independence, but a mutually regulated interdependence. Democracy means checking man's tendency to gather unlimited power unto himself. It means checking the faults in each of us. It minimizes the consequence of man's limitations.
And that was The Paradox of Freedom from The Rape of the Mind by Joost-Meerlo, MD. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Donald Trump.
We are a nation that no longer has a free and fair press. Fake news is all you get. And they are the enemy of the people. They refuse to discuss the Biden crime family, but enjoy covering false indictments of Donald Trump, who has done absolutely nothing wrong. And almost all pundits say so. We are a nation where free speech is no longer allowed, and where crime is rampant and out of control. We are
And that was Donald Trump at a rally in Pickens, South Carolina. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit more of Donald Trump from his rally in South Carolina.
There it is. Nothing like this has ever happened. The Espionage Act has never been used before. These are sick people. These are degenerates that are running our country, and our country's going to hell.
And that was Donald Trump at Pickens, South Carolina. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Tucker-Carlson from his Twitter account.
Hey, it's Tucker-Carlson. Belmont Hill is a small private school outside of Boston. It's not famous for its athletics. The school's mascot isn't even an animal. It's an 18th century navigational tool, the Belmont Hill Sextants. Doesn't even make sense. So when it comes to sports, Belmont Hill is not trying very hard. But the school's athletic program can claim at least one important footnote to history. In 1975, its football roster contained two names that you will recognize even now, Mark Milley and Richard Levine. Milley is now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Levine, of course, is our country's most famous admiral. Both transitioned late in life into overweight middle-aged women. Both wound up working as high-level officials in the Joe Biden administration. Their teammates at the all-boys school in Boston probably wouldn't have predicted any of that. Here's what Rick Levine looks like now from a video he just posted on Instagram.
Hello, my name is Admiral Rachel Levine, and I have the honor of being the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month, and actually, let's declare it a summer of pride. Happy Summer of Pride.
Happy Summer of Pride! Rick Levine is so darn proud he'd like to tell you about it all summer and possibly into the fall. He's got a lot to be proud of. What specifically, you ask? Well, strangely, he doesn't say. Nor does he mention his former wife or children. He doesn't tell us whether they're proud, too. Since none of them have been invited onto the Today Show to talk about their feelings, we're going to have to guess. For now, we're going to assume that his former family is proud. And why wouldn't they be? Few Americans in our history has come as far as Rick Levine. Here's a fat guy in a Halloween costume who somehow became a federal health minister. Not a small thing. You try that. Not too long ago, this same man was a married pediatrician with kids, lecturing about eating disorders at Penn State. Now he's emerged as a path-breaking lady admiral with medals on his chest. And he did all of that without winning a single naval battle, or even being female. It's pretty inspiring. What we have here is living proof that in this country, you really can be whatever you want to be. If Rick Levine can become Admiral Rachel, why can't you be Napoleon? Or Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India? Ever see that guy's uniform? Or why not Shaka, the legendary Zulu war chief? You could bring your assegai and leopard hide shield to work at Deloitte and no one would be allowed to say a word about it. The HR department would have your back. Unfortunately, you can't actually do any of that. The point of Rick Levine's amazing transformation is not to free you from the inflexible husk that you were born in so that you can be more fully yourself, whatever you decide that is. No, that's not the point. Rick Levine's personal journey has nothing to do with you. It's about him. It's his journey. Your fantasies about becoming something totally new and different have not been approved yet. In fact, they're weird. Shaka, the Zulu war king? Come on. That's racist. Shut up and be proud of Admiral Rachel.
I, Rachel L. Levine.
She's the one who has smashed glass ceilings. You just got some kind of weird fetish. So actually, now that we're saying this out loud, it's pretty clear that Rick Levine has no interest in liberating you from anything. This is not about liberation. It's just the opposite. It's just another religious war, same as all the others. The people who think they're God versus everybody else. In primitive civilizations, which would include every civilization since the beginning of time until ours, people assumed there were rules. Rules that no human being made, but that people could ignore only at their peril, at great risk. Some called these rules nature, or natural law, or even, as societies advanced, theology. But most of the time, people didn't call them anything. They didn't have to. There wasn't a debate about whether the rules were real. People assumed there were consequences to pretending that you were God. They thought Sodom and Gomorrah were real places that were destroyed for disobedience. They imagined the same thing could happen to them. Not anymore. Rick Levine doesn't worry about being punished by forces he can't see. He knows he's in charge. He makes the rules. He sets the limits. Reality is what he says it is. That's his view, and he shares it with virtually everybody else in a position of authority in the United States. That's a pretty bold bet, really. For 7 million years, human beings have believed one thing, presumably based on some evidence. Around 2015, they became convinced of something completely different. Are they right? It feels like we're going to find out soon.
And that was Tucker-Carlson from his Twitter feed. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Chapter 7 of I, the Jury by Mickey-Spillane.
Chapter 7. I woke up before the alarm went off, which is pretty unusual. After a quick shower and shave, I whipped up some scrambled eggs and shoveled them into me. When I was on my second cup of coffee, the boy from the tailor shop came in with my suit nicely cleaned and pressed. The pocket was sewed up so that you could never have told it was torn. I dressed leisurely and called the office. Hammer Investigating Agency, good morning. Good morning yourself, Velda. This is your boss. Oh, come on, honey, I pleaded. Quit being sore at me. That lipstick came onto the line of business. How can I work when you've got me by the neck? You seem to do all right, her reply came back. What can I do for you, Mr. Hammer? Any calls? Nope. Any mail? Nope. Anybody been in? Nope. Will you marry me? Nope. Well, so long then. Marry? Hey, wait a minute. Mike, hello? I hung up very gently, laughing to myself. That would fix her. The next time she'd do more than say nope. I'd better start watching that stuff. Can't afford to trip myself up, though with Velda, maybe it wouldn't be so bad at that. The police had taken their watchdog away from Jack's apartment. The door was still sealed, pending further investigation, and I didn't want to get in Dutch with the DA's office by breaking it, so I looked around a bit. I had just about given up when I remembered that the bathroom window bordered on an air shaft, and directly opposite it was another window. I walked around the hall and knocked on a door. A small, middle-aged gent poked his head out, and I flashed my badge on him. Police was all I had to say. He didn't bother looking the badge over, but opened the door in haste. A good, respectable citizen that believed in law and order. He stood in front of me, clutching a worn smoking jacket around his pot belly and trying to look innocent. Right then, he was probably thinking of some red light he ran a month ago and picturing himself in the lineup. Yes, officer, what can I do for you? I'm investigating possible entries into the apartment of Mr. Williams. I understand you have a window that faces his. Is that right? His jaw dropped. Why, yes, but nobody could have gone through our window without us seeing him. That isn't the point, I explained to him. Somebody could have come down from the roof on a rope. What I want to do is see if that window can be opened from the outside, and I don't want to shinny down a rope to do it. The guy sighed with relief. Oh, I see. Well, of course, just come this way. A mousy-type woman stuck her head from the bedroom door and asked, John, what is it? Police, he told her importantly. They want me to help them. He led me to the bathroom and I pushed up the window. It was some job. Those modest folks, fearing somebody might peek, must never have had it open. When it went up, a shower of paint splinters fluttered to the floor. There was Jack's bathroom window, all right. A space of 3 feet separated the two walls. I worked myself to the outside sill while the little guy held my belt to steady me. Then I let myself fall forward. The guy let out a shriek and his wife came tearing in, but all I did was stick my hands out and lean against the opposite wall. He thought I was a goner. The bathroom window went up easily. I pulled myself across the space, thanked the guy and his wife, and slithered inside. Nothing had been moved around much. The fingerprint crew had left powder tracings on most of the objects that could have been handled, and where Jack's body had lain were the chalk marks outlining the position. His artificial arm was still on the bed where he had put it. And the only thing that was gone was his gun, and stuck in the empty holster was a note. I pulled it out and read it. Mike, it said, don't get excited over the gun. I have it at headquarters. It was signed, Pat. How do you like that? He thought I'd find a way to get in. I put the note back with an addition at the bottom. Thanks, chum, I wrote. I won't. I scrawled my name underneath it. It was easy to see that the police had been over everything in the place. They had gone at it neatly, but completely. Everything was replaced much the same as it had been. There were just a few things not quite in order that made it possible to tell that it had been searched. I started in the living room. After I pushed the chairs to the middle of the floor and examined them, I went around the edges of the carpet. Nothing there but a little dirt. I found 3 cents under the cushions of the couch, but that was all. The insides of the radio hadn't been touched for months, as evidenced by the dust that had settled there. What books were around had nothing in them. No envelopes, no bookmarks, or paper of any sort. If they had, the police got them. When I finished, I replaced everything and tried the bathroom, but except for the usual array of bottles and shaving things in the cabinet, it was empty. The bedroom was next. I lifted the mattress and felt along the seams for any possible opening or place where it may have been stitched up. I could have cursed my luck. I stood in the middle of the floor, stroking my chin, thinking back. Jack had kept a diary, but he kept it on his dresser. And it wasn't there now. The police again. I even tried the window shades, thinking that a paper might have been rolled up in one of them. What got me was that I knew Jack had kept a little pad of notes and addresses ever since he was on the force. If I could find that, it might contain something useful. I tried the dresser. I took every shirt, sock, and set of underwear out of the drawers and went through them. But I might as well not have taken the time. Nothing. As I emptied the bottom drawer, a tie caught and slipped over the back. I pulled the drawer all the way out and picked up the tie from the plywood bottom. I also picked up something else. I picked up Jack's little book. I didn't want to go through it right then. It was nearly 10 o'clock, and there was a chance that either the police might walk in on me, or the little guy get suspicious enough of my being away so long, he'd call a copper. As quickly as I could, I put the stuff back in the drawers and replaced them in the dresser. The book I stuck in my hip pocket. The little guy was waiting for me in his own bathroom. I squeezed out Jack's window and made a pretense of looking for rope marks along the upper sill. His eyes followed me carefully. "Find anything, officer?" he asked me. "Afraid not. No marks around here at all. I checked the other windows and they haven't even been opened." I tried to look up to the roof, but I couldn't get back far enough until I stepped across to his side. Then I wormed my way into the bathroom and poked my head out and craned my head to make it look like I was really trying. "Well, I guess that's all. Might as well go out through your door as climb back inside there, okay?" "Certainly, officer. Right this way." He steered me to the front room like a seeing eye dog and opened up for me. "Anytime we can be of service, officer," he called to me as I left. "Let us know. Glad to help." I drove back to the office in short order and walked into the reception room, pulling the book from my pocket. Velda stopped typing. "Mike." I turned around. I knew what was coming. "What is it, honey?" "Please don't fool with me like that." I gave her a big grin. "I wasn't fooling," I said. "If you were on your toes, I'd be an engaged man right now. Come on inside a minute." She trailed in after me and sat down. I swung my feet up on the battered desk and riffled through the book. Velda was interested. "What is it?" she asked curiously, leaning over to get a better look. "A notebook of Jack's. I swiped it from his room before the police could get it." "Anything in it?" "Maybe. I haven't looked yet." Starting at the front was a list of names, all crossed out. Each page was dated, the earliest starting 3 years ago. Occasionally, there were references to departmental cases with possible suspects and the action to take. These too were crossed out as having been completed. About the middle of the book, notes began to appear that apparently were still active or pending, for no black X's marked them. I jotted these down on a list, and Velda checked them against news clippings in my files. When she finished, she laid down my notes with the word "solved" after each. Evidently, the cases had been cleared up while Jack was still in the Army. I wasn't getting much at all from this. Jack had inserted a single page with one word across it, "Whoopee." It was dated the day of his discharge. The next page had a recipe for veal paprika, and at the bottom was a notation to put more salt in than the recipe called for. There were 2 more pages of figures, an itemized account of what he had spent for clothes balanced against what he had in a bank account somewhere. Then came a brief remark. Eileen Vickers, family still in Poughkeepsie. She must have been a girl from home. Jack was born in Poughkeepsie and lived there until he went to college. The next few pages had some instructions from the insurance company. Then Eileen Vickers' name cropped up again. This time it read, "Saw EV again. Call family." The date was exactly 2 weeks before Jack had been killed. She turned up again 5 pages further on. In heavy pencil, Jack had, "R.H. Vickers, care of Halper, Poughkeepsie 221. Call after 6. Then below it, EV alias Mary Wright. No address. Get it later. I tried to puzzle out what it meant. To me, it looked like Jack had met a girl from home and had talked to her. She had told him that her family was still in Poughkeepsie. Evidently, he tried to call them and found that they were staying with Halper, and in order to get them, called at supper time. Then the next part, EV, Eileen Vickers, all right, but she was traveling under an alias of Mary Wright and gave no address. I thumbed through the pages quickly, and there she was again. EV, call family, bad shape, trace and raid 36904, the 29th. And today was the 29th. There was 1 page left. It was an afterthought, a memo to himself. Ask CM what she can do. CM. Charlotte Manning. He had reference to what Charlotte told me about. He wanted her to stop back during the week, but never got the chance to see her. I reached for the phone and dialed operator. When she cut in, I asked for the Poughkeepsie number. There were some clicks as the connection was completed. Then a timid voice answered. "Hello," I said. "Is this Mr. Vickers?" "No," the voice replied. "This is Mr. Halper. Mr. Vickers is still at work. Can you leave a message?" "Well, I wanted to find out if he had a daughter in the city. Do you know?" The voice interrupted me. "I'm sorry, but it would be better if you didn't mention that to Mr. Vickers." "Who's calling, please?" This is Michael Hammer, investigator. I'm working with the police on a murder, and I'm trying to run down what might be a lead. Now, can you tell me what the story is here?" Halper hesitated a moment, then said, "Very well. Mr. Vickers hasn't seen his daughter since she went to college. She became enmeshed in a sinful life with a young man. Mr. Vickers is a very stern gentleman, and as far as he is concerned, she might as well be dead. He'll have nothing to do with her." "I see. Thank you." I hung up and turned to Velda. She was staring at the number I had jotted down. 36904. "Mike." "What?" "Do you know what this is?" I looked at the number. It could have been a reference to a police file, but when I glanced at it a third time, I felt as though I had seen it before. I should know it, I think. Something vaguely familiar about it. Velda took a pencil from her pocket and swung the pad around. "Suppose you write it this way," she said. She put the numbers down to read. XX36904. "Well, I'll be damned. A phone number." "Roger, pal. Now fill in the first two letters of an exchange for the X's, and you'll have it." I jumped to my feet and went to the files. Now I remembered where I had seen that number before. It was on the back of a card I had taken from a pimp. The little runt had tried to sell me a deal, and I slapped him silly for it. I came back with a folder of notepaper, cards, and numbers scratched on the back of menus. I picked one out of the file. "Learn to dance," it read. 20 beautiful girls. On the back of it was a number. I compared it to the one from Jack's book. The same, only this one had an exchange, LO for Llewellyn. That was the number, all right. LO36904. Velda took it from my hand and read it. "What is it, Mike?" "It's the telephone number of a call house. If I'm not mistaken, that's where I'm going to find the Vickers girl." I reached for the phone, but Velda put her hand out to stop me. "You're not actually going there, are you?" "Why not?" "Mike." Her voice was indignant, hurt. "For Pete's sake, honey, do I look like a dope? I'm not going to buy anything. After all those pictures the Army showed me of what happens to good little boys who go out with bad little girls, I'm even afraid to kiss my own mother." "Okay, go ahead, but watch your step, by damn, or you're going to have to get a new secretary." I ran my fingers through her hair and dialed the number. The voice I got this time had a little life in it. Behind the hello, I could see a frowsy blonde about 50 in a gaudy dress dangling a butt from her lips. "Hello," I said. "You booked for the night?" "Who is this?" "Pete Sterling. Got your number from a little guy downtown." "All right, come up before 9 or you won't make the beginning of the entertainment. Want to stay all night?" "Maybe. I'll know better then. Book me for the night anyway. Guess I can get away from home." I winked at Velda when I said it, but she didn't wink back. "You're down. Bring cash. Ring 3 longs and a short when you come." "I got it." I cradled the phone. There were tears in Velda's eyes. She was trying to remain grim, but she couldn't hold them back. I put my arms around her and hugged her gently. "Oh, look, honey," I whispered. "I have to take a realistic approach to this case. Otherwise, how the hell am I going to get anywhere?" "You don't have to go that far," she sniffled. "But I told you I wouldn't. For crying out loud, I'm not that bad off that I have to patronize those places. There's lots of dames I could park with if I felt like it." She put her hands against my chest and shoved. "And don't I know it?" she practically yelled. "I wouldn't trust you to... Oh, gee, Mike, I'm sorry. I only work here. Forget it." I pinched her nose and smiled. Work here, hell. I wouldn't know what to do without you. Now behave yourself and stick near your phone, either here or at home. I may need you to pick up a few angles for me. Velda gave a little laugh. Okay, Mike. I'll watch the angles. You watch out for the curves. Hubba hubba. She was cleaning off my desk when I left.
And that was Chapter 7 of Mike Hammer in I, the Jury by Mickey-Spillane. Back in a minute. Thank you. I'm Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all of the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. And until next time, be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.